Years ago, there lived a boy named Sebastian Ting, and this is the journey of a Sarawak boy.
Good morning. My name is Sebastian Ting Chen Chao Yao. I was born in Cebu in 1955. I had my primary school education up to primary 2 at Sacred Heart School, Cebu. Then in 1963, I went down to Kuching to do my primary 3 education. I was with St. Joseph Primary School till primary 6, and then continue my secondary school in St. Joseph also until 1974. I finished my Form 6. I always remember my school, younger days in St. Joseph Primary School, especially the last year, primary 6. It was very important for us. We need to pass our common entrance before you can go up to Form 1. So that year, my form teacher, Mr. Chai, he was very kind. He knew that I could not afford a special tuition class, so he gave me free tuition. Free tuition means I had to stay back in school. I could not follow my relative's car to go back. So I had to walk back together with him after tuition, about 3 miles over. Along the way, naughty of course, if you see fish in the river, we'll go in and catch some fish at that time. So that was then in my primary school. I enjoyed that 4 years in St. Joseph Primary School. Now in secondary school, I became more active in sports. I played table tennis, basketball, rugby, high jump maybe. Was quite athletic at that time. Not very good, but then keep me healthy. So I maintained myself well and active in school. That was the wonderful 7 years in St. Joseph Secondary School. When I left school, I came down to Miri to join my parents. My parents moved to Miri in the year 1970 to follow my eldest brother who started work in Miri. I have 3 elder brothers, 1 sister, and 2 younger brothers, all in 7 of us. When my parents moved to Miri in 1970, I continued to be in Kuching to do my Form 4, Form 5, lower 6, upper 6, 4 years. I was on my own. I stayed with my classmate. I became a boarder in his house, and I stayed there for a year. I continued to be on my own. I consider myself then very quite independent at that time for 4 years. After I finished my Form 6, I returned to Miri, joined my parents in December 1974, and I started looking for a job. My first job was a temporary teacher in Miri Secondary School. That was a private secondary school. At that time, the principal was Mr. Lau Siu Wai. He was known as Lau Siu Wai, of course now Dato' Lau Siu Wai. I was there for a few months. Then in May 1975, I went down to Kuala Lumpur and studied at Kepong Timber Research Institute as a timber grader. I was there for 6 months. So I graduated in November 1975 and then returned back to Miri. I joined a sawmill at Bakam. I still can remember. 6 days in the sawmill and 1 day in town. We'll come down on Saturday afternoon and we will return up on Sunday. 1 month at that time then, my pay was 150 ringgit. That was then. If we talk about pay, I could have been better if I continued to be a temporary teacher where I was getting 450. But then thinking that timber industry at Sarawak then would have much better future, something to look forward to. I stayed there for almost a year, then I left because at that time, timber grading of our sawn timber exported overseas were not compulsory, no grading at all. Even now, all the logs were exported and are continuing to be exported. So we did not have that policy of logs being banned. Only sawn timber could be exported. In West Malaysia, that started many years ago. That was the time when I was there. Timber grader, they were getting very good pay because sawmills, planes must be graded before they were exported. But then I changed. I became temporary teacher again in SMK Chunghua, Brighton for a few months, and then relief teacher. Then I joined in as a salesman in travel agency, and the last one was a sales executive in selling high-tech, very expensive lubricants at that time, and probably still is Omega lubricants. That was in 76, and I continued until 78 August. When I was a salesman for that lubricants, I used to travel from here. I took a taxi down to Kuala Baram, then took an express. From there, I would go up to Marudi, stay there for a night. The next day, I take express. I would go to timber camps. I go to Sarawak Plywood. I go to quarries, Holystone, and those timber camps up in Ulu, Batisam, up to Long Lama. At that time, you go on the river. Now, of course, we can go to Long Lama by road. At that time, every stop, I will have to stay one night. One trip will be about 7 days. From here to Patunia side, I used to drive myself to go up to different timber camps.